So last week I made a video about Hyliion Holdings and how the stock price has been dropping since its IPO through a reverse merger into the stock market. And my conclusion was that there's no valid information that should make you want to sell the stock that pertains to the actual business itself. I'm sticking to that, but ever since then, the stock price has been dropping still. And honestly, it made me want to research on a very simplistic question. And we're gonna talk about that today. So without further ado, make sure you go vote. Let's get started. What's going on, guys? My name is Darren Jackson. Welcome back to another video. I really appreciate you guys watching the channel. And Hyliion has been significantly dropping. It dropped about 17% over the past week, and a lot of people are freaking out and they're just selling stocks, and it's just really super ironic. And honestly, there comes time where I'm just sitting there thinking, why is this stock dropping? Like, seriously, why is it? It made me want to ask a very, very basic question. I went down a rabbit hole just to get this basic question answered, just to kind of further prove the point that I had in my mind that I'll share with you guys later. And that basic question is, why do stocks drop? Now, I get a lot of you guys might be way more experienced in investing than I am. I've only been in the game seriously for about a year and a half. So if you are, first of all, I appreciate you being by, but I'll leave timestamps below. So if you want to just skip to the point where I start talking about Hyliion, then feel free. Otherwise, I do recommend you guys watch this whole video so you can at least get my thought process and leave comments, whether it's agreeing or disagreeing with me, and we can have that conversation. So anyway, I decided to Google search that, and I realized that the reason the stock market works the way it works and stocks work the way they work is this universal truth called supply and demand. Supply and demand is essentially the amount of a specific commodity and the desire to gain that specific commodity. So for example, I'm pretty sure the price of a new Ferrari is going to be a lot more than a Honda Civic, partly because the supply of a Ferrari is going to be a lot less than the Honda Civic. No shade on Honda Civics. I really wish I had one in college when I was commuting every single day, but that's what makes you turn heads on Ferraris when you see them on the highway, because you don't see them that often. That's what drives the price up. That's what increases the demand of it. The same thing goes with stocks. They work directly in specific situations when it comes to the stocks and the stock market. For example, stock buybacks are when companies buy back their particular stocks, which will decrease the amount of units of shares that they have within the stock market, but without changing the market value, it increases those stocks, which could potentially make some people sell those stocks to get some gains, which will make other people buy at a higher price, and that price goes up. Alternatively, you have stock splits, which is the complete opposite. Companies are increasing the amount of stocks that they have within the stock market and not affecting their market value, which will then dilute each share of stock, which should work in their favor depending on the company. For example, earlier this year, we saw Tesla and Apple do it roughly at the same time. And these are two very popular companies. So supply and demand definitely work together in the stock market. But that's not really the case with Hyliion Holdings, because if I'm correct, the amount of stocks that they had in the stock market when they first IPO'd should be the same amount of stocks that they have now. There was no increase or decrease in stocks that could have manually adjusted the stock price to make us want to buy or sell more. So what is it? So that leads me more into the demand aspect of supply and demand. That made me ask another question. What drives demand of a stock? And a lot of things can drive the price of a stock when it comes to demand. The hype itself, the news, potentially the news that's supported by the hype, or vice versa, or whatever. That was my mindset when it came to Hyliion Holdings. So a few months ago, I made my first video about the situation back when it was just called Hyliion, and Taurus Acquisition announced the merger between the two. And people were really excited, especially because of a previous company that this merger fell shortly after, around the same time, being Vector IQ and another EV company called Nikola Motors. So focusing on the Vector IQ Nikola Motors acquisition, once that was announced, the price of Vector IQ went up towards the 30s, maybe even $40 a share. I remember buying it at about $33 a share, so I was a little late. But once the IPO actually happened due to the reverse merger, the price went up to the 50s, the 60s, and even reached the 90s at one point. It was crazy. But here was the thing about Nikola Motors. They were only driven by hype. The demand of the stock was only given by the hype of the company. There was no prototype, at least as far as I know, and they had no experience on the road. You just had this huge hype man as their CEO and founder, which is amazing, but that was essentially it. And people realize that, and the stock price has decreased. Now, hopefully they do well in the future, but that was my mindset that I had before I invested into Taurus Acquisition, because I knew it was going to start out in the same fashion, because you have a SPAC that announces a merger with an EV company, except that EV company has experience. It has miles on the road, actually has history, and that hype is supported by that. And that is what drove up the initial price of the SPAC up to the 50s, I believe even higher than Vector IQ before they merged with Nikola Motors. But this is where the issue started, and this is where the news aspect comes into play. You had your first bad news, and it wasn't really directly towards Hyliion Holdings and their lack of being able to create products. It was the fact that there was a certain part of the agreement between the large investors in the company that they didn't agree upon. So essentially the merger was delayed. It wasn't a matter of if the merger was going to happen, it was a matter of when. A lot of people grew impatient, I'm assuming, and the price went down. So I feel like the delay, even though it led to the inevitable merger, is what forced the company to have such an off start in comparison to Vector IQ and Nikola Motors. And since then, the price has been going down. And here's why. Essentially because of the news. It's not really that there's been bad news, because if you really care about the company, you notice that there hasn't been. It's been good news, but there's no glitter, there's no hype, there's no excitement. It's just news. I mean, it's exciting for you if you really care about the company. It's exciting for me, but it's nothing eye-popping like Elon Musk with Tesla. But there are a lot of good news. They announced their partnership with Wegmans. They announced a partnership with Return It, which I have a video about as well. They announced a partnership with Cat, which Tyler Hill, whose account I'll leave below, he has a video about that. They announced a merger with them as well. They announced a merger with A&G, American Natural Gas, which will help with their infrastructure, their gas stations. These are all good news and all further explanation of the profits that this company will make. But I think there's a lot of impatience combined with the lack of exciting, eye-popping news that this company is having or not having. And that's why I feel like this stock is going down. There's really no major reason why this stock is going down, except a lot of people are potentially investing to it, a lot of shorters, I believe, that they just want to experience the quick gain and just sell out. But once they realize they're not going to get that major gain or gain at all, then they just sell out. I really feel like this is a testament to long-term investors, long-term growth investors that actually do the research on companies like this and believe in these particular companies. Because me personally, and this all may be naive, again, I'm a brand new investor in comparison to a lot of other YouTubers you're probably watching, but my personal opinion is that, at least the mindset that I'm having, is that we may not see profits from this company until maybe this time next year. I hope I'm wrong, that'll be dope, that'll be amazing, and I'll shut up. But I don't think we're gonna see a lot of profits. And even they said that. Thomas Healy, the founder and CEO of Hyliion Holdings, said that they should only have about a profit of $1 million by the end of this year, which should shoot up to the hundreds of millions of dollars by the following year, and potentially into the hundreds of millions, or I believe billions of dollars the year after that. You have other things such as the Hypertruck ERX, which should take that off by the end of next year. So this is the time that I'm personally using to continue to invest more. So me seeing this price drop is actually a sign for me, aside from the fact that I already have a pretty small position as far as dollar cost average, but I really believe in this company. I think they're gonna do some great things. Hopefully you guys believe in it too, because otherwise the wait is going to be painful. But if I were you, just go on your Robinhood account or whatever brokerage you have and just hold that Hyliion button and just drag it all the way down to the end of your stock portfolio, and don't really pay attention to it as much. It will grow. That's just my personal opinion. If I'm wrong, then stock investing is already a risk as is. So we'll see. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. Please leave your comments below. Let me know what you think, whether you agree with me, you disagree with me, you kind of have some questions. I welcome it all. I love having these conversations with you guys. I appreciate all of you guys that have subscribed to my channel. This channel is growing and I love it. Thank you so much for you guys watching, and make sure you watch these other videos. Hopefully they help you guys on your investing journey just as much as they helped me. I appreciate you guys watching. Once again, I think I've said that a lot, but until next time, take care.